Have you ever felt the emptiness of being pushed aside by those who once promised to love you forever? Now imagine the pain of finding out that your own children, the ones you raised with love, tears, and sacrifice, were planning to abandon you in the middle of the ocean on a cruise I paid for with the little I had saved from my retirement. Sounds unbelievable, right? But that was my reality. A betrayal so deep it shattered my heart and made me question everything. They said I would ruin the trip, that my presence was a burden, and treated me as if I didn't even exist. But I'm not just a tired old mother. I'm a woman who faced the sting of ingratitude, who turned pain into power, and who decided to show them never to underestimate the one who gave them life. If you've ever felt lonely, rejected, or invisible inside your own family, then this story is for you. Stay with me until the end, because what I went through might just be your voice, your release, or even your path back to dignity. Get ready to hear a raw, real-life story of abandonment, revenge, and resilience. One that will stir your emotions and remind you that even when they think we're weak, we can still be strong enough to rewrite our destiny. Don't go anywhere. Every detail matters. Can you imagine finding out that the people you love most in this world are plotting your humiliation? I didn't have to imagine it. I read it with my own eyes. A notification flashed on Ricardo's phone, like a warning from fate. Cruise without the old lady. That was the name of the WhatsApp group. I froze. It felt like a tasteless joke, but the chill that crept down my spine told me otherwise. I picked up the phone with trembling hands. I swear I wasn't going to snoop, but something pulled me in like a magnet. And the moment I opened that screen, my world changed. "Let's pretend we want her there," one message said. Another even crueler. "She's so tacky, she'll ruin everything with her boring stories." Each word was like a slap from the very people I had protected my whole life. The group was full of mockery. Mariana wrote, "Let's just say it was her gift. That way she feels useful and won't get in the way." And Ricardo, the same son I proudly called Doctor, replied with a laughing emoji. "She has no clue we only want her credit card." I stood there frozen, like the floor beneath me had vanished. My eyes burned, my heart felt like cracked stone, and in my hands, along with that cursed phone, was the half-finished shawl I'd been lovingly knitting, one I imagined resting on Mariana's shoulders as we watched the sunset together on the cruise deck. But the story I saw on that screen was a completely different one. It was the story of a woman who sacrificed everything for ungrateful children. A mother who sold her car, her retirement savings, even the beach apartment, just to help their dreams come true. And mine, crushed in a group chat full of cruelty. In that moment, the gentle mother who fed them with love and hope, she died. And a new woman was born, a woman who would no longer accept crumbs, who finally understood that the love we give doesn't always come back, and when it doesn't, we must learn to respond with dignity, intelligence,
and a touch of cold resolve. The cruise was still ahead, but me, my dear, I was no longer the same.
On that screen, the words weren't just a trail. They were a detailed script of my destruction. I read each line as if I were bleeding inside. It was a group with a mocking name, Cruise Without the Old Lady. Mariana had written, "Let's say it was her gift. That way she feels useful and doesn't get in our way." My chest tightened. And Ricardo, my son, the one who used to sleep feverish in my arms, replied with a laughing emoji. "Of course, the old lady thinks she's the matriarch of the royal family. Little does she know we only want her credit card." I didn't know whether to cry or vomit. How can a child mock the one who gave them everything? There was more, much more. Mariana, always so vain about her looks, commented, "I already told the girls if she's going to wear those hideous tunics on the cruise, we'll hide her suitcase." They laughed at my clothes, my ways, my age, as if growing old were a joke. I looked at myself in the mirror at that moment with the blanket on my lap, my white hair pinned back with the clip my granddaughter gave me, and for the first time I felt ridiculous, as if I were a burden. But instead of humiliation, something inside me started to boil.
It was supposed to be a celebration of our bond. They turned it into my most intimate nightmare. Ever since I saw that cruise ad, I imagined something beautiful, unforgettable, a symbolic farewell to the life I had lived until then, and a celebration of the family I had built with so much love. I sold the beach apartment, the same one my late husband loved, where we used to spend summers with the kids running down the hallway. I took the money from the sale and spent $45,000. That's right. I booked cabins for everyone, upgraded to a balcony suite, even paid for the drink and excursion packages so they could have fun. I wanted it to be special. After all, this might have been my last big trip with my children. But you know what hurt the most? It wasn't the money. It was realizing that to them, I was never really part of the celebration. I was the obstacle. While I dreamed of dancing nights and toasting to life together on the deck, they were planning to leave me behind like an old suitcase forgotten in a hotel lobby. "She won't even notice," Ricardo's message said. "We'll distract her with some meds or something," Mariana added, as if I were a piece of furniture or something broken and no longer useful. And to think I skipped buying my name brand eye drops just to put more into that cruise. I even bought cabins for 2 of their friends. To make the trip more fun, they said. And I, foolish and happy, embraced it all like someone cradling a newborn grandchild. I even had matching outfits made, had our initials embroidered on our boarding shirts. So much naivete. It makes me ashamed. But, my dear, it was in that moment of deep humiliation that my soul woke up. They wanted to abandon me? Then they would be forced to face me every single day of that trip. From that point on, the cruise would still happen, but I would be the one directing the voyage, and there would be no escape.
They thought I was just an old lady who couldn't use a phone. Fatal mistake. For years they laughed at how I struggled with buttons, apps, and those so-called stories. "Mom, just give it up. You don't get it," they'd say, laughing with that condescending tone. Little did they know I was paying close attention to everything. I learned in silence, took a free smartphone class at the neighborhood square, learned how to use a computer with the neighbor's grandson. And look, it wasn't easy, but I figured out every password, every shortcut, every digital cloud where they thought their secrets were safe. Someone who lived through a dictatorship and raised kids alone, my dear, learns to read more than screens. You learn to read souls. It was during one of those afternoons that Mariana, without realizing it, gave me her Instagram password. "Mom, do you even remember your password?" she asked, absent-mindedly while we were messing the TV settings. "Sure I do," I said. Then she typed hers into my phone to help me out. Well, 5 minutes alone was all I needed to get in. I saw messages with her friends, screenshots, fake partnerships, and a marketing plan based on made-up numbers. Mariana wasn't an influencer. She was a poorly rehearsed actress with an audience of bots. And the more I read, the clearer it became. My daughter had gotten lost in a world of appearances. The next day, I went through the papers in Ricardo's desk drawer. That's when I found something far more serious. A loan taken out in my name, with my signature forged. I went straight to the bank manager and requested the recorded phone call of the authorization. It was his voice, cold, confident, claiming, "My mom is aware." He had no idea that signature would be the key to his downfall. I made copies, scanned everything, saved it on 2 flash drives and in my email. Now I didn't just have hurt feelings, I had proof. They messed with the wrong mother. And at sea, where no one can escape, I would show them, with all the elegance of a betrayed and prepared woman.
They planned to leave me behind at the Fort Lauderdale port. Instead, we all boarded the same ship, under very different circumstances, laughing out loud, pretending to be the picture-perfect family. They were good at pretending, but that day, I pretended better. At the check-in line, they left me for last. They wanted to delay me, isolate me, maybe even lose me in the crowd. But right there, calm as ever, I handed the boarding passes, 3 of them, to the cruise staff, all paid for under my name, all booked by me. I watched the color drain from Ricardo's face. Mariana's hand slipped off her purse strap. "But Mom," he whispered, anxious. "There's no but, sweetheart," I replied firmly. We're going to make this an unforgettable trip. The first night was a quiet show. We sat together at the most elegant restaurant on the ship. I wore my pearl necklace, a symbol of everything I built with dignity. They, on the other hand, were choking down shame with every bite of shrimp. They couldn't look me in the eye. I smiled, not with irony, but with the serenity of someone who knows exactly where she stands. The next morning, I invited them to have breakfast in my suite. Like old times, I said sweetly. And there, with tea in hand, 40 years as an accountant taught me one thing: numbers don't lie. And now they were on my side. The next morning, I called Ricardo and Mariana back to my suite. I made a point of wearing the robe they always said was out of style, and I served coffee with cornbread, just like I used to on their childhood birthdays. They sat down in silence, like students in the principal's office. I took a deep breath and spoke with the calm of someone who has endured more than her share. From this day forward, all your financial transactions go through me. They laughed nervously, thought I was speaking metaphorically. But when I pulled a folder from my purse, full of bank statements, changed passwords, and account notifications, their laughter vanished like smoke in the wind. I started with Ricardo. I explained that I had transferred the funds from his office into a joint account with an independent accountant. Clients now sign contracts directly with me, I added. Mariana tried to protest, but before she could finish her sentence, I handed her a printed report detailing the fake brand deals and a follower audit showing all the inactive accounts. Your social media accounts are locked until the truth is restored. The brands you claim to represent have already been contacted by me. Her eyes welled up with tears. But contrary to what they might have expected, I felt no pleasure. I felt duty, the duty of a mother and of a woman who refuses to be walked over ever again. I continued explaining. Their credit cards now had limits, and I was the one controlling those limits. Each week, you'll receive an allowance, and you'll need to show me exactly how it was used. I call this financial and emotional re-education. Mariana curled up on the couch. Ricardo looked like a kid caught cheating in school. This wasn't a vacation anymore. It was a reckoning. And me? I stayed seated, calmly sipping my coffee with milk, serving them the bitter taste of disappointment without raising my voice, without pointing fingers. Because sometimes, my dear, the most powerful revenge comes in the quietest form.
Some say revenge is a dish best served cold.
I served mine in 7 carefully planned courses. On the first day, I introduced my children to the ship's captain with a smile fit for a Christmas card. "Here's my lovely family," I said, as if I were brimming with pride. I watched Ricardo go pale when the captain mentioned he'd be making a special toast to my birthday at the gala dinner. The same birthday they pretended to forget, mocked in their group chat as another year for that mummy. Mariana squeezed my hand, pretending to be affectionate, but her skin was ice cold. They knew I was behind it all, and that this was only the beginning. On the third day, Mariana discovered she could no longer access her social media accounts. I tried to hide my satisfaction, but it wasn't easy. "Maybe the Wi-Fi's acting up, sweetie," I said casually, crocheting in the ship's lounge. She tried everything, but I had already changed the passwords, enabled 2-step verification, and even installed a tracking tool on the phone I had gifted her months earlier. On the 5th day, it was Ricardo's turn to taste the bitterness. I answered a call from his business partner. Yes, I answered it. "Ricardo doesn't have access to the company funds at the moment. I'd be happy to assist." The partner stammered. Ricardo's voice trembled when he found out. On the 7th and final day, during the farewell dinner, I handed each of them an envelope. On the front I had written, "Terms of coexistence." Mariana refused to open hers at the table. Ricardo unfolded his with shaking hands. Inside were clear rules, scheduled visiting hours, financial oversight, mandatory involvement in social causes, and family therapy. "Is this some kind of joke?" Mariana whispered. "No. It's a new beginning," I replied, smiling. Because right there at that table, surrounded by elegant people and soft piano music in the background, I was no longer the old woman they tried to erase. I was a woman who, after a lifetime of being silenced, was finally writing her own story. With strength, wisdom, and a fountain pen.
Age brings many things: wrinkles, gray hair, and an excellent memory for insults. It was lunchtime on the deck. The sun was strong. Tourists were chatting cheerfully, glasses clinking, kids running around. And there they were, my 2 children, pretending to maintain a harmony that no longer existed. They sat beside me, murmuring polite small talk, as if the world hadn't just crumbled beneath us. But I'm not a woman who pretends. I waited for the table to fall silent, took a deep breath, looked them both in the eyes, and with a calm but steady voice asked, "Do you remember when you called me a nagging old lady in that group chat?" Mariana nearly spilled her orange juice. The waiter stopped in his tracks. A few people at nearby tables glanced over, like they sensed drama brewing, but instead found high drama served elegantly. "Mom, please, not here," she whispered, pleading. Ricardo wiped sweat from his forehead, despite the soft breeze. "Oh, sweetheart," I continued with a faint smile, "this is just the beginning." And then I recited slowly and clearly a few of the things they had written. "All she does is talk about the dead guy. If she drowns in the pool, this cruise gets better. She dresses like she's going to church in 1952.
Each word landed like a needle stitching cold truths into the fabric of a family performance, right in front of an unsuspecting audience witnessing the final act of our private play. The shame on their faces was my applause. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I simply showed them. I did it for me, but also for every other woman forgotten by her own children, women who spend a lifetime as caregivers only to be seen as a burden in the end. I gave them the stage they were so eager to have. They just didn't expect the spotlight to shine back on them so brightly. And right there under the Caribbean sun, with my red lipstick flawless and my posture proud, I marked the beginning of real change. And believe me, my friend, sometimes public shame is the only cure for deeply rooted ingratitude.
My daughter built a castle of lies on social media. It was up to me to show her that sandcastles don't survive high tide. On the third deck of the ship, there was a modern lounge with light-colored sofas and a panoramic view of the ocean. Mariana loved spending hours there, taking spontaneous photos and posing like she lived a life of non-stop luxury. One of those days, she sat down with her phone in hand, ready for another round of self-promotion. But when she tried to log into Instagram, surprise! Access denied. Two-step verification activated. Code sent to new registered number. Her panic was almost theatrical. She slapped her phone against her leg and let out a frustrated sigh. "Mom, did you mess with my phone?" I looked over my glasses and calmly replied, "You have 142,000 followers, sweetheart. But how many of them are real?" She froze. I handed her an envelope with the report I had printed before we ever boarded the ship. A full audit. 87% of her followers were bots, inactive accounts, or purchased profiles. The brands she claimed to represent? I contacted them personally. Not a single real partnership. You built a fantasy, Mariana, but no filter can hide the truth forever. She wilted into the couch like a flower without water. And with the same gentle tone I once used to rock her to sleep as a baby, I added, "Now it's time to relearn. For real. No fake likes." I offered her a deal. No social media for the rest of the cruise. Instead, she would help me write the proposal for a foundation I was creating, focused on fighting digital scams targeting the elderly. A project born from pain, but meant to grow into purpose. She tried to argue, but deep down she knew everything she had built was just a facade. And sometimes you have to tear something down in order to rebuild it with a solid foundation. And in that elegant lounge where she once pretended to be a successful woman, she was now beginning to become a real one. One who, maybe one day, might be proud to say, "She takes after me."
A lawyer should know the law. My son seemed to forget the one about document forgery. That morning, I invited Ricardo for coffee. I placed a crumpled paper on the table, stained with coffee, the kind of document only a mother who knows her son deeply could use as a weapon. "Ricardo, explain to me why your name appears as a witness on a loan I never authorized,"
I said, my voice firm but heavy with a sadness that pressed against my chest. He went pale, staring at the paper as if it were a bomb about to go off. I knew he was capable of lying, but not of looking me in the eyes and denying this. I took the opportunity to press play on the recorder I had brought with me, a recording of my conversation with the bank manager. Ricardo's voice came through clearly, calmly, stating that the signature was mine and that I had approved everything. He tried to justify it, tried to twist the story, but it was too late. That evidence was a sentence he never expected to receive from his own mother. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to fight. I simply showed him the facts. And in the silence that followed, I realized that justice, even when it's harsh, can come with serenity. It was there over coffee with an ocean view that I understood something important. The betrayal that hurts the most doesn't come from strangers. It grows inside your own home. That forged loan wasn't just financial fraud. It was proof of the abandonment and ingratitude I had felt for years. But it was also the spark I needed to show them that behind the tired old mother they thought they knew stood a strong woman capable of confronting even her own children and winning.
They thought the worst was behind them until the captain raised his glass for the special toast. That night, the main dining hall sparkled under crystal chandeliers, and the aroma of dinner floated through the air, mingling with the soft sound of piano music. I was seated between my children, who looked small against the grandeur of the setting, but carried the weight of shame in their eyes. When the captain stood, every gaze turned toward him. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we celebrate a lesson in family loyalty," he announced, his voice firm but respectful. It was my speech, written word by word, each chosen to cut deeper than any confrontation. Mariana clutched her dress so tightly her nails left red marks on her skin. Ricardo, sitting beside her, downed his whiskey in one gulp, like trying to swallow a bitter pill. I smiled, because at that table full of appearances, I was the only truth. I spoke about the importance of respect between a mother and her children, the pain of abandonment, and the quiet strength of someone who knows how to forgive, but also how to draw boundaries. My eyes met theirs, and for a brief moment I saw fear, not of punishment, but of loss. Dinner went on, but the atmosphere had changed forever. That speech wasn't just words. It was a turning point, a milestone I know they'll carry for the rest of their lives. There, between dishes and glasses, I made it clear the old woman they tried to leave behind wasn't just alive, she was the keeper of truth in this family. And believe me, my dear, sometimes the greatest revenge is simply showing them you're stronger and more dignified than they ever imagined. On the last day, I handed each of them a beige envelope, the same kind I used for important documents for 40 years. It was the last day of the cruise. The morning was quiet, and even the sea seemed to respect what was about to happen. I called Ricardo and Mariana to my suite. They arrived silently, Mariana with crossed arms, Ricardo with his gaze down, as if already guessing the punishment coming their way. On the table, I placed 2 beige envelopes. Simple, discreet, but heavy with meaning. "These papers aren't punishment," I began. "They're contracts for a new beginning." Ricardo was the first to take his. His hands trembled. Mariana hesitated, staring at her envelope as if it were a sentence. "You're controlling us," she said sharply, eyes welling up. "No," I replied. "I'm trying to save what can still be saved." Ricardo opened his and read silently. The clauses were clear. An independent accountant would now oversee the office. All contracts had to go through me, and any new partnerships required my written approval. "You're exposing me like an intern," he muttered, avoiding my eyes. "No," I said, "I'm teaching you how to be a man." My voice was firmer than I expected, but it was time. Mariana finally opened hers and read quietly. Inside was a commitment to 40 hours a week at the Foundation for Elderly Victims of Scams, temporary blocking of social media accounts, and a digital re-education plan. She suddenly stood up. "You want to punish me like I'm a child." "I want you to grow up into a woman," I replied, "and one day be proud of it." Silence returned to the room. I knew this could break our ties for good, but I also knew that leaving things as they were would condemn the rest of my life to contempt. I didn't raise monsters, but I did raise children too spoiled to face their own conscience. Now either you change or you'll lose much more than money. Slowly, they sat back down and looked at the contracts. None of those signatures would be symbolic. It was a commitment of soul, responsibility, and future. That late afternoon, with the sun casting a golden glow on my suite's balcony and the envelope still between us, I knew this wasn't about revenge. It was about rescue. And for the first time, I felt that maybe, just maybe, they were beginning to understand. Time is the best judge. And after 6 years, I can finally assess the results of my drastic intervention. 6 years have passed since that cruise that changed everything between us. Ricardo, who once barely met my eyes, now works as a legal consultant specializing in protecting the elderly, ironically fighting family fraud, perhaps his way of making amends. Mariana, on the other hand, left behind the life of appearances and now manages the foundation we created together to raise awareness about digital scams. I see real change in them, even though the scars of the past remain alive. At every reunion, I notice a mix of respect and fear in their eyes. Maybe because they know that even with time, I still hold the reins I once denied them. And I confess, my daughter, not all wounds have fully healed. There are days when I remember the pain, the ingratitude, and even feel like giving up.
But then I recall the cruel messages from that group, Cruise Without the Old Lady, and reaffirmed the importance of my fight. Still, the greatest lesson I learned was for myself. Love is not weakness. It is firmness. It is courage to stand up even to those we love most when they hurt us. Whether my children truly changed or only learned to respect me, only time will tell. But I, my friend, am here, strong, dignified, and at peace with the woman I have become.
No victory comes without a cost. And my victory left marks even on me. The night was silent, as only the sea knows how to be when it wants us to think. I sat on the suite's balcony with my chamomile tea and the blanket on my lap, the one I started knitting before everything fell apart. It was supposed to be a gift for Mariana. Now it was just an unfinished piece of a wounded love. Then I heard soft laughter coming from the floor above. I slowly got up and went to the upper deck. There I saw a woman my age laughing with 2 children. They hugged her, took pictures with her, held her hand gently. They helped her climb the steps to see the starry sky. They carefully adjusted her scarf. My heart tightened in a way it hadn't in a long time. That scene, so simple, so ordinary, pierced me like an invisible arrow. My eyes welled up, and for the first time in many days, I felt pain not from the betrayal I suffered, but from the tenderness I never had. I returned to my cabin in silence. I adjusted the blanket on my lap and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back had dignity, yes. She had courage, but she also carried a deep sadness, as if she had won the war but lost part of her soul on the battlefield. I began to wonder, did I go too far? Did my justice become obsession? And if in the process of teaching them a lesson, I also close myself off to any real reconciliation? The memories of the messages from the Cruise Without the Old Lady group still burns like hot iron, and the anger, no matter how much I try to push it away, still whispers in my nights. But that night, under the Caribbean sky, I understood that my greatest battle now was with myself. Maybe my revenge was necessary, but the coldness with which I carried it out, that, yes, left scars that even time can't erase. To the world, I was strong, but inside, I'm still learning to be whole.
Now I leave this question to you, dear reader. How far would you go to right a family injustice? After that trip, many nights are still too silent, the kind of silence that doesn't come from outside, but from within, the kind only felt by someone whose heart was broken by someone they loved. Sometimes I find myself reviewing everything I did, the restrictions, the contracts, the control over every step they took. And then the question comes like a whisper in the dark. Did I become what they said I was? A bitter, vengeful, controlling old woman? But right after, another truth hits me hard.
Or was I simply the only one who saw that love also means setting boundaries? Have you ever wondered what you would do if you were betrayed by your own children? If they read your messages, mocked your age, your very existence, and even planned to erase you from their own story? Would you have done the same as I did? Maybe yes, maybe no. My story isn't a manual, it's just an outpouring, a cracked mirror where many women, maybe even you, can see a piece of themselves. Because the real dilemma isn't about revenge or forgiveness, it's about how much we endure in the name of love and how far we go when that love hurts us. Now I ask you, from mother to mother, woman to woman, would you have stayed silent, or would you have done what I did? This story doesn't end with an answer. It ends with an invitation, that you look at yourself with courage, that you demand respect, that you never again accept being invisible within your own family. If you felt touched, if you saw a little of yourself in this story, share it. Your voice could awaken another woman who has been silent for years. And remember, true love sometimes needs to say enough. If you want to follow more real stories that touch the heart, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a thing. We're in this journey of strength, learning, and overcoming together.